You're a fraud, and I'm not going to let you lie to these people any longer. The room fell into a stunned silence. Cameras zoomed in. 100 eyes darted between the two men standing on stage. Zohran Mamdani had just done something no one else had dared to do. He confronted Alex Stein, right there, live, in front of a packed crowd at the Queen's Civic Center. Stein's smile faltered. That trademark smirk, the one he wore on every viral video and late-night interview, twisted into something else. Shock, maybe even fear. The moderator, clearly panicked, reached for the mic, but the damage was already done. The words were out, and they were spreading like wildfire. How did it come to this? What led a state assemblyman, calm, principled, deliberate, to explode on stage in front of 1,000 people and national media? What secret pushed him to risk everything in one brutal sentence? Let's go back. 2 hours earlier, the air inside the town hall was already heavy. A panel discussion on civic freedom in the digital age had drawn everyone from community organizers to influencers. Mamdani had been seated quietly, listening, nodding, his notes neat, his posture precise. He wasn't here for drama. He never was. But then came Alex Stein, wearing a blazer far too bright for the occasion and a grin that screamed provocation. He stepped onto the stage like a man arriving at his own roast. He wasn't on the schedule. He hadn't been invited. But someone, no one quite knows who, had given him the mic. And when Stein started talking, the atmosphere shifted. It wasn't just the jokes. It was the way he talked about immigrants, about welfare, about lazy tenants living off the city's teat, about the performance of poverty. Every sentence felt rehearsed, like clickbait masquerading as public discourse. At first, Mamdani stayed quiet. That's who he is. He listens, he waits, he analyzes. But then Stein crossed a line. He said, "I love coming to Queens. It's like a free trip to every failing country on earth." There was a ripple of gasps, a few nervous laughs, then a sharp tension. Mamdani's jaw tensed. His fingers closed around his pen like it was a blade. Still, he waited. Stein went on. He mocked a local mother who had spoken earlier about food insecurity. He called her Oscar-worthy. He laughed about a disabled housing activist's speech. "This is why I only donate to dogs," he joked. People looked to Mamdani, some pleading, others warning, but he stayed in his seat, waiting, burning. And then Stein made it personal. "There's a guy in this room who pretends to represent you," he said, turning dramatically toward Mamdani. "But really he's a glorified TikTok socialist who's never worked a real job." A few people clapped. One booed. Mamdani stood up. He didn't shout. Not at first. He took the mic calmly, his voice steady. "You say you care about freedom, Mr. Stein, but all I hear is fear. Fear of change, fear of dignity for people you don't understand." Stein laughed. "Oh, here we go. Mr. Rent Control himself." That's when it happened. "You're a fraud," Mamdani said again, louder this time. "And I'm not going to let you lie to these people any longer." Gasps, phones raised, security hesitated. But Mamdani wasn't done. "You've spent your life mocking pain you've never felt, turning suffering into content, selling cruelty like it's comedy. You don't speak truth. You sell venom." And just like that, the room exploded, with applause, with boos, with tension so thick it made the air feel heavy. Was this a career-ending meltdown or a long-overdue reckoning? What did Mamdani know that the rest of us didn't? And why did Alex Stein's face turn pale at those final words? Stick around. And if this moment made you feel something, share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters more than ever. Also, if you're into stories where truth punches through the noise, consider subscribing. No pressure, just real talk. Alex Stein didn't speak. For the first time all night, the man who never stopped talking just froze. The crowd wasn't silent anymore. They were alive. Some stood up, clapping. Others jeered. The moderator leaned forward again, but Mamdani's voice rose above the chaos like a bell cutting through fog. "I didn't come here to argue," Mamdani said, eyes locked on Stein. "But I won't stand by while you insult the people I represent. Not tonight." It was a strange moment, charged, raw, electric. You could feel something shift in the room. For all of Stein's showmanship, Mamdani had something he didn't. Moral weight. Not drama, not noise. Just truth. Carried plainly. Stein finally grabbed the mic again, trying to reset. Okay, I get it. You're the righteous one. Let's all clap for the angry assemblyman." The sarcasm didn't land. Not this time. Mamdani stepped closer. "You can laugh. That's what you do. But behind your jokes are real consequences. Your online army harassed a tenant union for 6 months. One woman had to move. She couldn't take it anymore. You're blaming me for trolls?" Stein scoffed. "That's not how this works, man." "But you signal them," Mamdani shot back. "You mock people who stand up for something. Then you point and let the mob loose. That's cowardice." The crowd stirred again. Phones were up. This wasn't a debate anymore. It felt like a reckoning. Like something that was supposed to stay unspoken had finally burst into the open. And then something even stranger happened. A woman stood up in the front row, early 30s, clutching a worn-out notebook. She didn't wait to be called on. "I'm that tenant," she said quietly. The room went dead silent. Her voice shook. "You joked about me online, said I was the face of fake housing activism. I had to leave my job. I still get emails, disgusting ones. You made me afraid to leave my own building." All eyes turned to Stein. He looked like someone slapped him. Mamdani didn't move. He just looked at her and said, "What's your name?" "Sarah." He nodded. "Sarah, thank you for speaking." It was so simple, so genuine, and so completely opposite from the spectacle Stein had tried to turn the event into. Someone clapped, then another, and then, in the middle of this unraveling, Stein tried to pivot. "Okay, we get it. You're the heroes. I'm the villain. Can we move on now?" But the room didn't move on. Mamdani turned to the moderator. "Why was he allowed on this stage?" The moderator, visibly sweating, fumbled. We received a request from one of the event sponsors." "Which one?" Mamdani's voice was calm, but firm. There was no answer. Then Mamdani turned back to the crowd. "This is what happens when platforms become performance stages for cruelty. He's not here to debate. He's here to bait, and we let it happen." It was then, in the stillness, that a young man near the back yelled out, "Tell them about the messages!" Mamdani didn't hesitate. "Yes," he said. "I've seen them. Screenshots, emails, threats sent to organizers after Stein's clips go viral. People tracked down, doxxed, harassed." Stein interrupted. "That's not on me." But the woman, Sarah, spoke again. "You called me a discount Rosa Parks. That's your voice, your video. You said it. You laughed." Her words hit harder than anything Mamdani could have said. And in that moment, it became clear. This wasn't just a confrontation. It was an unmasking. But it left one burning question. Why had no one called him out like this before? And why did Zohran Mamdani look like he had more, something bigger, waiting to be said? If you're watching this, and you've ever wondered whether public figures actually protect people, say something. Write a comment. Your story could matter more than you think. And if you believe that decency is louder than cruelty, subscribe. That's how we keep voices like this alive. Zohran Mamdani didn't sit down. He stayed standing, silent for a beat, scanning the room. Then he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Not a phone. Not a flashy prop, just one sheet, slightly crumpled at the edge. "This is from last week," he said. "An organizer of a rent strike in Brooklyn sent it to me. She asked me not to read it out loud. But then she watched your video, Alex, and she changed her mind." He opened the page. She wrote, "When Alex Stein mocked our effort, I was devastated. I've lived in this building for 11 years. My son was born here. I work at a public school. I've never begged for anything. But our heat didn't work for 3 straight winters. When we protested, you filmed us like we were animals, and you called it content." The room was completely still. Mamdani looked up. "You went there. You filmed them. And then you laughed." Stein crossed his arms, trying to play indifferent, but something in his eyes flickered. It wasn't fear. Not exactly. Maybe guilt. Or maybe the dawning realization that this crowd wasn't on his side anymore. "Do you even know what happened after that video went up?" Mamdani asked. He didn't wait for an answer. "She got death threats. Tenants dropped out of the strike. The landlord threatened eviction. That's not a joke. That's a weapon." Stein stepped forward. "You act like I told people to do that. I didn't. I just posted a video." "And then you monetized it," Mamdani said sharply. "You made money off their fear." Silence again. Then an older man in the front row stood up. Gray hair, thick glasses, city council badge on his lapel. He cleared his throat. "My daughter lived in that building," he said. "She cried the day that video went viral. She thought her fight was over. She almost gave up." Stein looked around, sensing control slipping fast. "You all act like I'm the villain. I make jokes, that's what I do. That's freedom of speech." "No," Mamdani said. "That's freedom without responsibility, and we've seen what that breeds." Someone near the back yelled, "He needs to apologize." Another shouted, "He never will." Mamdani raised a hand, calming the crowd. "Let him speak. He's had every platform in the world. Let's see what he does with this one." And then, unexpectedly, Stein took the mic again. He paused, looked around, and said, "I didn't know they got threats." A few heads turned. A murmur moved through the room. "I didn't know the woman had to leave her job," he said, almost quietly. I thought it was just jokes. Just the internet." Mamdani watched him. Stein looked at Sarah, then at the city councilman. "I never wanted anyone to feel hunted." And for a second, a flicker of a second, it looked like he meant it. But then came the fatal moment. He added, "But I'm not taking the video down. That's still mine." The room groaned. Mamdani stepped forward again, and this time his voice was stronger than ever. "That's the difference between you and the people in this room. We don't cling to mistakes for profit. We try to repair them." And that, right there, was the moment everything turned. A woman started chanting, "Truth matters. Truth matters." Others joined in, and just like that, the room, once divided, was united. Stein stepped back. He didn't leave. Not yet. But he was shrinking. No more jokes, no more deflections. Just a man who'd been exposed, not by force, but by facts. And Mamdani? He wasn't finished. He turned to the crowd. "If you think this ends tonight, it doesn't. Because the damage caused by these kinds of attacks doesn't vanish with a trending clip. It lingers. It scars. And we need to clean it up." That's when someone from the press called out, "Assemblyman, are you planning to act on this?" And Mamdani said simply, "Yes, we're not done." If you believe accountability matters, even when it's uncomfortable, leave a comment. Let others know you're paying attention. And if you want to see more stories where truth speaks louder than spectacle, you know what to do. Subscribe. The chant faded, but the energy stayed. Zohran Mamdani stood at the center of the stage, not by design, but because no one else would. Alex Stein was off to the side now, arms folded, back slightly hunched. His usual swagger had dissolved into something brittle, something unsure. A local reporter pushed forward. "Assemblyman Mamdani, you said you're planning to act. What does that mean?" Mamdani turned to face her. "I've already drafted a bill," he said. "It prohibits the monetization of content involving private citizens without consent, especially when it leads to targeted harassment." Murmurs, some surprised, some doubtful, but many, many applauding. "You're going after viral content?" someone asked. "No," Mamdani replied. "I'm going after weaponized content. There's a difference." He walked to the edge of the stage. "You can be funny without being cruel. You can be bold without destroying lives. And if that offends some people, I'm fine with that." Then he turned to Stein. "You've built your career by pretending you're just a clown, that it's all satire. But satire doesn't punch down, Alex. Satire speaks truth to power. You speak mockery to the vulnerable." Stein stayed quiet. His arms weren't folded anymore. They were limp by his sides. "I don't hate you," Mamdani added, "but I won't let you walk away from the harm you've caused." He reached into his pocket again, this time pulling out something smaller, a flash drive. "I've submitted this to the Attorney General," he said, lifting it slightly. 32 documented cases where viral harassment followed your content. Names, screenshots, statements. It's all there. The room gasped. "You may not have pressed send on the threats, Alex, but you loaded the gun, pointed it, and handed it to the crowd." A woman in the back shouted, "That's justice!" And still, Stein didn't move, didn't speak, because for the first time, there was no punchline, no escape hatch, no "it's just jokes" to fall back on. This wasn't about humiliation. It wasn't revenge. It was clarity, accountability, and maybe, for the first time, consequence. Mamdani turned back to the crowd. "We need a new standard, not censorship, not silence, just responsibility. Because when freedom of speech becomes freedom to harm, we all lose." The crowd stood, not in chaos, not in rage, but in quiet, steady agreement. People who came expecting a town hall had witnessed something more, a public turning point. The moment a representative didn't just speak for his community, but protected it, in real time, on the record, with action. And then, before leaving the stage, Mamdani paused. He looked toward Sarah, who was still sitting in the front row. "You said you felt invisible," he told her. "You're not." She nodded, tears in her eyes. He turned to the crowd once more. "I'm not going to change the internet, but I can make it answer for itself." And with that, he stepped down, not defeated, not drained, but calm, certain, like someone who had finally drawn a line and dared anyone to cross it. So now the question falls to you, watching this, feeling the weight of what just unfolded. Do you believe platforms should protect pain for profit? Do you believe voices like Sarah's deserve protection, not mockery? And if you do, what are you willing to stand up for? Leave a comment. Say something that matters. And if you want to keep hearing stories where truth isn't afraid to stand alone, subscribe.